Welcome to my Sitecore diaries. This is the new video in the supportive pages for .NET. Uh, this is a continuation of the last video which we have done for MVC. This is the part 2, more detailed, more into the .NET MVC. Let me introduce myself. I am Jitendra Khanekar. I am Sitecore 10 .NET certified developer. I am in Sitecore architect and consultant working in Mumbai. So let's start MVC part 2, more into .NET MVC. So what we are going to see in this video, preview of this video. First we will see .NET MVC project structure. Then we will see example of a model, view and controller. Then we are going to see action methods, model binding, layout view, partial view. So let's start. So let's see how to create a MVC project in Visual Studio. The type which we will be you have to select is ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework. Then you have to configure the project with your project name, location, your solution name and the framework. Then you have to select the MVC framework. Okay, add and for core references also MVC, so that will get added. This is what you have to select MVC. This will create a default project in Visual Studio. So let's see how let's create it in Visual Studio, the blank MVC project. So I have opened the Visual Studio and created click on a create new project. Okay, here we have to find the ASP.NET Web Application. So we are doing it for the C#, so I will select this. Okay, ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework, project template for creating ASP.NET application. You can create ASP.NET Web Form, MVC or Web API application, add many other features in the ASP.NET. So this is the project which you will need to create a MVC application. Okay, so if you create a next, you can give your project name here, your location, your solution name and the framework. So you can select a framework. Okay, I'm just giving a name here, test application. Okay, then you say create. Then you have to select the MVC. See MVC template. This is the template which you have to select. Okay, and then create. So this will create the new MVC project. You will see in detail now what are these folders and all. Okay, so this is how you can create the MVC sample MVC project using the ASP.NET MVC prayer template in the Visual Studio. So now let's see the details of the folder structure. So first we will see app start. In this app start we have three files. One is a bundle.config, a bundle config, a filter config and route config. So bundle config, if you open the file, it will look like this. Okay, where you are bundling the JSS and the CSS file, the statics file. What is bundling, that we will have a separate video on the bundling. But just now remember, this bundle.configs are bundling your JS file, CSS file. Basically a static content is bundled in the bundle.config file. Then you have a filter.config. Again, we will not go in detail here. Just remember, here we are registering few filters. Okay, the global filters are get registered in this file. Okay, now what are global filters and why they need to register, and that we will check in later some other video. Okay, then route config. This is very important file. Here you are defining the routing of your website. Okay, so route config, when we will see MVC routing, we'll go in detail, but now you remember that if you browse the website, by default it execute here a default route like this default route, map route this is name is the default, and if the controller action and id, it means the your url contains the whatever the controller slash action slash id, that will get mapped here, and then it will get executed, and by default it will execute controller home, if you see here, and the action as a index. Okay, so this will define your route config. Okay, MVC routing is a separate topic. Maybe we will see it in next soon. We will see that video where we will discuss about the MVC routing. But this is very important file where which we are defining the route config. Then you see the controller here. Okay, so home, in the home controller folder you have a home controller. So if you see the name also, it is like a home controller, I mean the home word and then the controller. So that is how you have to write it. And you see it is inherited, it is inheriting the controller base. Okay, so controller is your base controller. So this is how it is written by default. Okay, so if you are getting your own control or own base controller, then you have to inherit the controller there, and that basic base controller, your custom controller will come here. So this is how your controller is defined by default in the controller class. Then there are three action methods here by default comes when you create the MVC project from the Visual Studio MVC template. You will have an index, about, and contact. Okay, these are the three action methods which gets generated in the home controller. Then if you move ahead, then the model folder, you see by default there is no model classes added. So whenever you will develop your website, you need to identify the model and you need to add it into the models. Then there are three views, home, you having about.html, contact.html, index.html. Also there are few shared layouts. What is those we will see later, but this is how it is structured. So if you open the about or any index.html, it will have a static HTML like this. Okay, so by default sample statics will get added in the home controller. So this is how it will look like. Then if you want to create a model, okay, then you can add a model like this, home view model. Okay, and in this you can add your properties. Okay, like I have added here a name as a property, and then I have for the demo purpose I have assigned that property in the controller itself, but depending on your logic you can assign those values. So this is how I have creating the model. Then if you see this this is your action method. So here I am passing the model. You see here I have created model view model here, and then that model is get passed, whereas in your model view I have constructor only, I have assigned the value to the name field. Okay, so that value get passed, and then that is getting passed to index view. So view is here. So how it will get executed, that in the view, what is the name of the controller? Home. So there is a home folder here, and then what is the name of the action method? Index. So the index name will be your index.html will be your view. So this view will get executed, that is the index view. And if you see here, I have added the model is used here. So model.name. Okay, so I am assigning the whatever the model.name in the HTML. So that should execute your that will give us the model name, the model property on the page. Okay, so by default route config is home/index. Okay, so here the controller is a home, action is a index, view return is a index. Okay, and then if you run the application, this is how it will look like. Okay, here if you see this one, here the value is coming from the model. Okay, so that is how the it works. So let's say practically how it works. I already created the application. I will just show you how it works in the exactly in the Visual Studio. Okay, so this is the sample project which I have created, and as I shown you in the presentation, that I have added this model here, home view model. You can simply right click, add new item, and then you can add a class file. Okay, so once you add that class file and you give the name as a home view model, okay, then I have added this property. Okay, and for demo purpose I have assigned the value here in the constructor itself. So you might have your business logic and you can get the value from the view model or model values from the business class or business logic. Here for just for a demo purpose I'm adding it into the constructor of the model, but in practical case that is not in practically that is not the case. In practical solutions you will have your business logic and you will get the models values from that business logic. Okay, so this is the model which I have added. Okay, then in my controller in the index method, what I have done is I have defined the model and I have passed this model to the view. Okay, here is the view. So basically what is happening is in the MVC structure, the whatever the name, okay, of your controller, like here your name is a controller. So the what is this view? So in the views you will have a folder of the controller name, so home folder, and then which view, here there are three views are stored in this home folder, right? But then which view will get executed here, that is depend on your action method. So what is the name of the action method is the index, so it will execute the index view. So okay, so basically here the controller method which you are calling index home view model, okay, model, and that model is get passed here to the view, and that view is here, and now I'm using this view in the header one, so I can access that property like @model.name. This is a razor view. Okay, so in the razor view this is a razor syntax @model.name. Okay, so when I run this, it will show my name here. Okay, because this is the value which is get updated from the model. So this is how the MVC structure works. Okay, and now if you see the if I run it, is by default it is calling the home controller as the index, because in the abstract, that is what we have seen in the one of the our presentation, that the default root here added is a controller is a home and the index is action is the index. So that's the reason when I run this application here directly from the Visual Studio, it is executing the by default first page as a home/index. Okay, so this is how the views and data the model view controller get executed. This is how you are getting the values of the model, and that model values you are passing it to the view from the controller. Okay, so we will see now next topic. So now we will see what is model binding in MVC. Model binding is a method which maps data from HTTP request to action method parameters. So basically it is whatever your request is coming, HTTP request is coming, that request is get mapped to the action parameters. I mean, whatever model you are having, whatever the action method you are having, how it gets mapped, that is called as a model binding. Okay, so there are primitive type binding, simple and complex. So how does the simple and complex bindings are done? I mean, simple and complex type data will get added. Okay, so let's take an example. Like you have a action result view is an method. Okay, so MVC framework automatically converts a query string to the action method and parameters provided to their names and matching. So whatever request is coming, for that whatever the query string, that is actually get maps to the parameter here, integer ID and name. So that parameters get mapped the way the query strings are coming. Okay, we will see that. Then second point is this binding is a case insensitive. So ID, a small letter ID and the caps letter ID or the mixture will consider, right? Okay, so that doesn't matter here. It is a case insensitive. You can also have the multiple parameters in the action method with a different data types. Query string values will be converted into parameter based on the matching names. Okay, so basically if you go to the customers, you have a URL which is having HTTP request, which is having customer is your controller /view, okay, /view/1. So how does it maps? here, and then you have a customer slash view query string id is equal to 1. So these are the two different URLs. How does it map? And then there's another URL, customer view question mark id and name Jitendra. So what will happen is, if your request is coming like this, customer slash view slash 1, then it will get map to the action method where you are having the integer id. So id will get value as a 1 here with both these cases, whereas the second case, id will have a 1 value and name will have a this Jitendra value. Okay, so basically your query string id and this id parameters get mapped. We will see more detail of this when we go to the routing. Okay, but this is how it happens, and it's a similar approach is happening in the complex field. Okay, complex field also you will having a JSON parameter, JSON strings that will get matched. You have a we'll see how the form collection will work. Okay, so next is the form collection. So you can also include the form collection type parameter in the action method instead of a complex type, or to retrieve all the values from the field. So basically you have a form collection here. Okay, and on your form, on your view, you have a id is a text box. Okay, and then that will get maps to here id. Okay, the id is your name of the text box, then you have a name of the text box form, then it will get mapped to here. This is how the form collection will get mapped. Okay, then you have a bind attribute. Okay, so what is bind attribute? The bind attribute will let you specify the exact property of a model should include or exclude in the binding. So it is basically you have a 10 number of form collection or 10 number of properties. Okay, out of which few of the properties you do not want to bind it, then you can specify that include exclude those, and also you can exclude the few of them. Okay, so include is used for including the properties, exclude is used for the excluding properties. So example is here, you have a edit method and you have update method. In edit method, I have added bind include id comma name. So what will happen is it will map only, or it will bind only the id and the name properties of the home view model. Okay, so this is how you will include the specific properties of that model for the binding. Whereas in the update method, I am saying it exclude cost home view model. So here what is happening is you are excluding the cost property. So when it is get bind, the cost property will not get binded in this update method. Okay, so this is how bind attribute works. Okay, then we will see what is layout. You will heard this word every time, what layout. So what is the layout? The layout view allows you to define a common site template. Basically define the scaffolding of your template. The layout view allows you to define a common site template. So that template which can be inherited in a multiple views to provide a consistent look and feel in multiple pages of an application. So if you know the ASP.NET Web, in that web forms, in that you must be knowing the master page. So layout is something like a master page which can be utilized in the multiple views, so that you can have a same look and feel in the across the website. Okay, so this is a common site template. You can say it's a scaffolding. You have a header, footer, body. You can give the skeleton, and then this that is called as a layout. So by default there is a one DL layout which will get added in the code when you create use the template, or when you create a project in the Visual Studio. So this is how it looks like. Okay, here you have a header section where the CSS are added. Okay, the title is added. Then you have a different section here. If you see here some menu sections and buttons are added. Okay, and then you see here a render body, which is your actually a placeholder to add another another view. Okay, and then you have a JSON method. Also you have a footer here. Okay, so the views which will be displayed in the placeholder render body are called child views. So whatever the views which are displayed within this render body is nothing but your placeholder. That placeholder will get replaced by another view. Okay, and that view is getting called as a child view. You can specify it in a common view start.html in child view or in an action method. Okay, so layout, if you want to assign it to any view, Okay, so you want some view to utilize this layout. It can be done by two ways. First is it will have a common. If you see the folder, the view folder, there is a CHTML file called viewstart.chtml. There you can assign the layout that will get applied to all the views within that folder. Okay, and another one is the directly you can assign the layout. Okay, we will see this in the practically how it is assigned. You can also override the default layout view setting and view start.chtml by setting the layout property in the each child view. So in each child view you can also specify the layout. So here you see the layout, how it is defined in the individual view. You can define like layout here. This is how it looks. Then what is a partial view? A partial view is a reusable portion of a web page. It is a CHTML or VB-HTML file that contains the HTML code. It can be used in one or more views or a layout files. You can use the same partial view at multiple places and eliminate the redundant code. There are some piece of a code or some HTML which is used on the multiple views. Okay, your layout is a scaffolding. You have a views, and in that views also there are something which are used at multiple places. In that case, you can create the separate CHTML which will contain the only that HTML code, and you can utilize it. Okay, that is called as a partial view within the view. Okay, so how does the HTML helpers for rendering partial views? So how does partial views get rendered? Okay, first method is a html.partial. Okay, you can use html.partial method. It accepts a partial view name as a string parameter and returns the MVC HTML string type. Okay, so it returns the MVC HTML string type. It returns an HTML string, so you have a chance of modifying the HTML before rendering. So you can define like here I have menu bar underscore menu bar is my partial view. Okay, if I want to render that, I can use html.partial underscore menu bar. Okay, so this will return me underscore menu bar will have the piece of HTML code which you want to use on multiple places. Okay, so this method will return me MVC HTML string. Then second method is a HTML render partial. The HTML render partial method is the same as the HTML partial method, except that it writes the resulted HTML of a specified partial view into a HTTP response stream directly, so you can modify its HTML before render. So basically in the partial view, and it somewhat look like this. Okay, where you have a render partial, again we are rendering the menu bar here. Okay, so the difference here is that HTML partial view give you the HTML string, whereas this is give you the HTTP response stream. Okay, so that is the only difference between these two. Then you have a HTML render action. The HTML render action method execute the specified action method and render the result. The specified action method must be mapped with a child action on the attribute and return the partial view result using the partial view method. It is somehow called like this. Okay, so basically in HTML render action, it is actually calling directly the action method. Okay, and that action method should have an attribute called child action only. So that attribute should be there on the that method. So here if you see the example here, render menu is my action. Okay, in the home controller. So render menu action will have an attribute child action only. So what it will does when you call this, okay, on the layout, then it automatically calls this action method home controller inside a render menu, and that will get returns you the whatever the attribute which we are having. Okay, so that will returns the partial view result, and using that partial view method, and that will get rendered. So this is how partial view works. Okay, so let's see practically in the Visual Studio how the layout and partial views are built. Okay. Okay, let's see now the layout and the partial view practically in the Visual Studio. First of all, let's see the layout. So if you see here a layout like this, okay, where you have here a render body where you can render the different component views. Okay, and then you are having the other scaffolding. So if here you see the header and then you have a footer here. Okay, so basically that is how it is rendered as a layout. Okay, and when if I see the view, okay, so if I go to the index HTML, here if you see here there is no layout is defined, but in this home folder, okay, you see here this views folder, you have a view.html. Here the layout is defined. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that whatever the views which is getting executed inside this will be the layout for all those views. And if you want to override, then you can simply write the layout, this layout inside the view itself. So you can have it here itself. You can add the layout. Okay, whatever the lines were there, the same lines you will add here. So that is how the layout will work. Okay, now let's see the partial view. So I have created one partial view. Okay, this is my partial view. There are two partial views I have created. One is the underscore menu and the action method view. So action method view is the third method where how we will see that directly from the action this will get called. Okay, and this is the static view. Okay, if you want to create a view, right click, add view, then MVC5 view, and here you can create as a partial view here, and you can give your name. So that is how you can create the partial view. Okay, now once I created this, I have given here a h1 tag partial view, and here I have given the action method partial view. Now I want to use those partial view in the index page. So I have used three methods here. If you see the dot partial, where I have given the menu partial view name. Similarly, I use the render partial here, and then action method view and home. So in the home controller, I have created a method action method view. I given the attribute as a child action only. Okay, so what will happen is in the index HTML, this will get executed and it will get value from here, that is h1 partial view. Okay, and then similarly will happen for its render partial, whereas this render action will get called this method action method. It will go the view as per the, as I explained you how does the view logic is work, that the whatever the name of the action method, that will be the name of your view. So here the action method view, and here action method partial view is your content. Okay, if I run this, sorry, selected the top. Now I'm running the default one. Okay, if you see here two times partial view, because we added a partial rendering twice. Okay, two different methods, and this is the third one method. It is saying action method partial view. Okay, so this is how the layout and the partial view works. So we are done for today. If you have any question, you can connect me on my Gmail ID and my LinkedIn ID. If you like the video, please click on a like button. Please share the video with your friends, and do provide your feedback the comment via the comment. If you are still not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to the channel. Click on a bell icon to get a latest update. Thank you. Thanks for watching.